Hello, it's Friday, May 26th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO-Headline News. How about a forecast for sky watching for this Friday evening? Well, it's a question actually posed by earthsky.org. The question, will you see the young moon and Mars? We're going to bet the answer lies in the following story. And there's yet another question. Will Muslim moon spotters in the Americas see this moon? This moon marks the beginning of Ramadan. And the answer, those in the Americas will have a better chance of seeing this young moon May 26th than those in the Middle East, Europe, or Africa. There will be links later at UFO Headline News, charts and graphs for your perusal. People in the Americas will have an easier time seeing this young moon May 26th because as it orbits Earth, the moon will have had more hours to distance itself from the sun by the time sunset comes to the Americas. So the moon will be over a day old at sunset, May 26th, as seen from both North and South America. This young moon could well be visible in the west right after sunset. Here's some specifics. The May 2017 new moon came actually May 25th, 2017, at precisely 1944 UTC. Generally speaking, a moon over a day old may be seen as a whisker-thin crescent, but only after sunset. The moon and Mars will be very near the glare of sunset. They'll both disappear beneath the western horizon before it gets good and dark. You might need binoculars to see Mars, and that's maybe a good idea to catch that young moon as well. Mars has had a long run in our evening sky. Remember a year ago when Mars was relatively near Earth? Mars was brighter than it had been in 10 years. Now Mars is faint and far across the solar system. Earth is about to turn the corner ahead of Mars in orbit, and soon we won't see the planet at all because it will be behind the sun. Mars will then reappear in the east before dawn, but not until September, and then it will settle in for a long, dull time of appearing before dawn throughout the months of September, October, November, and December. In 2018, Mars will brighten suddenly and become spectacularly bright. That's because Earth will be passing between the Sun and Mars again, something we do every other year. In 2018, Mars will be closer to us than it's been since 2003. And it says right here, it's worth the wait. So watch for Mars and say goodbye to it if you can. Yep, we gotta say bye-bye Mars, but we can still say goodnight Moon. And of course, if the moon was sentient, it would undoubtedly be interested in this headline. Moon rock bag that brought first ever lunar samples to Earth could fetch $4 million at Sotheby's. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong uttered those famous words, quote, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," end quotes. Neil Armstrong was the first human ever to set foot on the surface of the moon, and he radioed his colleague Buzz Aldrin to describe it. Quote, "The surface is fine and powdery. I can pick it up loosely with my toe," end quotes, he said, according to Newsweek's coverage of that mission. As part of their brief sojourn on the moon, Armstrong and Aldrin collected samples of the dust and rocks that covered a region called the Sea of Tranquility. On the 48th anniversary of that staggering milestone, Sotheby's will auction off a bag that contained those first lunar samples, the first ones Armstrong ever collected and brought back to Earth. It's called the Contingency Lunar Sample Return Decontamination Bag, which first appeared on the Apollo 11 storage list, and it still contains traces of dust and rock. This July sale will be the first legal one of such an artifact from the Apollo 11 mission. That's according to Jim Hull. He's head of exhibits and artifacts at NASA. The auction house expects it to fetch $2 million to $4 million. Quote, "This seemingly modest bag was part of mankind's greatest journey. It played a crucial role in the single most important scientific task of the Apollo 11 mission. That task? To bring back the very first sample of lunar material ever collected," end quotes. And that's a quote from Cassandra Hatton. She's vice president and senior specialist in charge of this Sotheby's sale. She continued, quote, "It is one thing to read about going to the moon, It is quite another to hold in one's hands an object that was actually there and that still carries traces of that faraway place. To this broadcaster, that sounds like nothing more than a great science fiction story prompt. Writers out there, go for it. What's in those traces in that bag? Maybe we can segue the next article right about here. Headline: The History Channel orders UFO drama from executive producer Robert Zemeckis straight to series. We found this story in two of the entertainment industry trade papers, The Hollywood Reporter and Variety. This broadcaster was gobsmacked to find that story carried in The Hollywood Reporter was full of what we shall say marginalizing attitude. Yeah. So we're going with this from Variety. Here it is. The History Channel has ordered a 10-episode scripted drama from executive producer Robert Zemeckis straight to series. It's currently titled Blue Book. The series chronicles the real top-secret United States Air Force-sponsored investigations into UFO-related phenomena in the 1950s and 60s, known as Project Blue Book. This series will focus on college professor Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who is recruited by the military to spearhead this project. Quote, "Rarely have I been associated with a project that is a perfect fusion of historical fact and extraordinary entertainment," end quotes. That's Mr. Zemeckis. He continues, quote, "We are grateful to A&E Studios and the History Channel's support for what I know will be a fabulous series," end quotes. Blue Book is an A&E Studios production in association with Campari Entertainment, and that's a division of Image Movers. David O'Leary serves as creator and writer. Arturo Interian is the executive in charge of production for that series, and Zemeckis, Jack Rapke, and Jackie Levine are executive producers. Here's a quote from one of those executives. "Blue Book is inspired by actual covert events of an era in American history that is shrouded in mystery," end quotes. Mystery and history. We can't wait to see how this plays out. We'll keep you posted. Undoubtedly, there will be reviews. And here's a stunning headline. Ohio State scientists first to find failed supernova. We grabbed this story from the Columbus Dispatch. Always fun to see how a hometown paper treats it. Emily Williams wrote this. A massive fail, some 22 million light-years away, signaled a tremendous discovery for a few Ohio State University astronomers. In the astronomical community, the fate of a dying star is pretty much set in stone. They explode in a supernova, the largest explosion in space, and then they collapse into a black hole. But a new observation announced in a study on Thursday, well, it's upended that thinking. For the first time, astronomers saw a star simply disappear. No supernova. This star, which is 25 times as massive as our sun and should have gone up like fireworks, only dimmed into darkness. Astronomers nickname this absence of activity a, quote, massive fail, end quotes, something which, until this discovery, had been speculated but never seen. Quote, this is the first time we can point to a star and say, this was a failed supernova, and that's from Krzysztof Stanek. He's an Ohio State University astronomer and co-author of this study, which was published in the journal Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. In a supernova, a dying star explodes and expels its outer layers in a burst of light. In 2009, astronomers watched this star burn brighter, but not as bright as a supernova, before it gently shed its outermost layer and faded from sight. The team used the Hubble Space Telescope and the Spitzer Space Telescope to search for any sign of this star, but nothing was there. So they concluded that, like other massive stars, it had become a black hole, only this star skipped a step. When the team, led by Ohio State University astronomer Christopher Kochanik, set out to find a massive fail 7 years ago, other astronomers thought they were crazy. It's much simpler to observe a massive explosion than its absence. Some large supernovae can be seen using a simple telescope, but the team had to use something called the Large Binocular Telescope in Arizona, one of the most powerful telescopes in the world, to detect failed supernovae. It's too early to say how many stars experience the same kind of demise, but the fact that even one massive fail has been found is significant. The observation proves that a supernova isn't necessary to form a black hole. It might also explain why the number of supernovae that astronomers expect to see and the number they actually see don't match. Although this data is still limited, the team estimates that 10 to 30% of massive stars die as failed supernovae. They're excited to see where this discovery will lead them, and they note that more time means more data and greater understanding of why these stars fizzle out. The proven existence of failed supernovae will also give some peace of mind to theoretical astrophysicists who have struggled for years to model supernovae. Emily Williams, who wrote this, ends with, "It's okay to fail because nature does that too." Just last night, a friend of ours said, "Failing is nothing more than a learning experience." Oh, we say amen to that. And here's something more about Ohio State University. They have their place in history regarding strange things in the astrophysical area. On August 15th, 1977, as most of you general listeners are aware of, Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope in the United States picked up a signal. Well, actually, astronomer Jerry R. Ehman, that's spelled E-H-M-A-N, discovered this anomaly. He was reviewing data that appeared to come from the constellation Sagittarius. It bore the expected hallmarks of extraterrestrial origin. He was so impressed by the result, he circled the reading on the computer printout and wrote the word "wow!" on its side. And as we recall, that was red ink, very powerful. The entire signal sequence lasted for the full 72-second window that the Big Ear was able to observe it. But it has not been detected since, despite several subsequent attempts by Jerry R. Ehman and others. Though none of the many hypotheses advanced to date adequately explains the source of this emission, and a natural origin has not been ruled out, the WOW signal remains the strongest candidate ever detected for an alien radio transmission, to which we can only add wow, and go Ohio State U. Let's go someplace. Let's talk about what's coming up for the weekend starting tomorrow. You're going to be hearing UFO headline news, all right, and you're going to be hearing this broadcaster. We're going to try something a little new, a little edgier for the weekend, and thanks to our producer, we've got the greatest title ever. It's going to be Off the Beaten Path. We'll be tackling some stories that we normally wouldn't touch with that proverbial 10-foot pole. We'll get into things like what in the world is going on in Antarctica, that kind of stuff. So again, we invite you, gentle listeners, to join us for Saturday and Sunday as we go off the beaten path with the UFO headline news right here at Inception Radio Network. And now, how about some of those UFO reports? Let's head on over to Eccles, England. It's MUFON case number 83979. The date of this sighting is May 25th, 2017, and it got a same-day report. In summary, it flew overhead as high as a plane, shaped like solid figure 8, one half green, one half white, rotating, slow pace. Under sighting specifics, we've got a viewing distance listed at over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet, no cloud cover. The sighting duration was 1 minute. And this object features are described as other. Its flight path, a straight line path, and according to our witness, who provided this information, the object shape does not apply. This is a short snippet of a story, but it's got an interesting aspect. Here we go. I was sitting in the back garden with my brother-in-law. Ironically, my brother-in-law and I had just been discussing life on other planets when I noticed a figure 8 object. This thing was slowly spinning. It was traveling at approximately 1,000 miles per hour, but it was very high up. So instantly, I asked my brother-in-law, "What is that?" We both saw it. We are both baffled by what we saw. This broadcaster just can't help but think there's an element here of conscious contact. They were just discussing life on other planets, and boom, there it was. Well, there something was. From Eccles, England, to Blair Gowrie, Scotland, in the United Kingdom. The date of this sighting is April 2nd, 2017, and we grabbed it from Bill Puckett's wonderful site UFOs Northwest. The time of this sighting was 6 p.m. local time, and here's the description provided by the witness. The sun was out, and there was far away mist-like clouds, but not thick clouds. I was walking on the road not far from the Standing Stone, and then I thought I saw a giant star in my peripheral vision. I looked closer to see a rough outline of a shadow. It seemed like something metallic and spherical, but the shadows did not show as spherical. It looked round and slim somehow, and on its side, almost as if it was a flying saucer. The shadow was just to the left of the edge, so I knew it wasn't spherical like a weather balloon would be. It wasn't shiny silver. It was very similar to the shiny surface of a metal shed you might find on a farm. This thing was stationary, and I kept watching it, thinking maybe it was a weather balloon, but it didn't seem to be one. I'm not too sure if it shrank as it kept fading, but it was coming back again, and then at one point it became a small ball of light, then disappeared completely. I thought maybe it flew away into the distance, but that didn't make sense, as a weather balloon could never move quickly enough to get out of my line of sight as quickly as that. It was not windy, just breezy now and then. I couldn't see this thing at that point anywhere in the sky. Certainly there was no thick cloud cover for it to hide in, that's for sure, and if it went down, I would have easily seen it go down. Yep, just your standard UFO disappearoo. Let's zip across the Great Pond and land or hover over Warrenton, Missouri in the United States. It's MUFON case number 83978. It's an older sighting. It took place in 1999 on the 31st of May. It didn't get reported till the 25th of May, 2017. This seems to be one of those things where, in spite of all the years, the witness felt, I gotta report this. And then there's that anniversary connection, shall we say. It was May 1999. Well, under sighting specifics, our witness provides a viewing distance 501 feet to 1 mile. The altitude over 500 feet. Yep, there was cloud cover that night. The sighting duration, 15 minutes. Object features, appendages, and other. Object flight path, stationary and other, and the object shape, other. The weather in Warrenton, Missouri, maximum temperature 81 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees Celsius, down to a minimum of 66 degrees Fahrenheit, 19 degrees Celsius. The maximum visibility was 10 miles, 16 kilometers, down to a minimum of 7 miles, 11 kilometers. And there was nothing abnormal about the weather. Here's the account. My father and I saw something strange high in the midday sky, but we only caught a glimpse. It was strange enough that we turned around in our car less than a quarter of a mile away from the sighting. But by the time we got back, only 1 minute, there was already another person stopped in the road staring at this object. Another man came out of his house and joined us, and although we gazed at the object for 15 minutes or so, none of us spoke a single word. I never even spoke to my father until we arrived home. The object was by far the biggest machine I had ever seen. It was easily the size of a New York City block, with very tall buildings covering the top of this visible side of the object. It was the shape of a very fat football. This thing was high in the sky near some clouds, but it was above and a bit behind them. It seemed almost as though the object was trying to take on the colors of its surroundings, like it was trying to cloak itself, but the cloaking device was malfunctioning. The man whose house we were in front of had dogs. Those dogs were going crazy, barking as though they were extremely upset. The only movement from the craft was a change in angle, and this thing was also completely silent. It went from horizontal to a 45-degree angle. One of the strangest things was a feeling of complete awe. There was a bit of fear, and then that fact that none of us spoke at all. curious? Too stunned? Conscious contact? You decide, gentle listeners. Let's go back over to Bill Puckett's UFOs Northwest, shall we, for this headline. Bright orb-like object hovers over Seattle, Washington. The date of this sighting is April 24th, 2017. The time, 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Here's the description. Our witness says, I have a video of it. It was a bright orb-like object just hovering. I have been a long-time sky watcher, but this was the first time I've seen something like this. I was on the way back from China. I had a layover in Seattle when I witnessed this. I was naive, thinking it would still be there in a few seconds. What happened was I was trying to send it to my friend, this short video, so I filmed it again, and by that time, the object was gone. It disappeared in mid-air. I'm sure there's lots of crazy things in Washington state, yeah, says our witness. And there's a note here. The object is not a bright planet. This is a note from Bill Puckett, because it is below the clouds. It could be a balloon, but there should be some drift with the wind. It's not likely to be a high-altitude balloon because balloons are normally maintained at a constant height, and the witness said that this object vanished. It's unlikely to be a drone, as it's too close to Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Drones are not allowed to be within 4 miles of an airport. Also, a drone would not disappear in mid-air. The weather in Seattle at the time of the video showed a few clouds at 6,000 feet, and visibility was 10 miles. Head on over to ufo-headline-news.com. Check out that video for yourselves. Striking. Oh, there's something else striking. Oh, it's the clock telling us that once again we've got to go because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at ufo-headline-news.com. Take care of each other. We are all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.